Everybody, welcome to another edition of the New Breed Show, the world's best podcast and YouTube combo, discussing everything new with you. I'm one half of your hosting duo, Jay Horsecow. With me, I have my partner in crime, the notorious TIM, Tim Anderson Jr. Tim, how's it going?
Great, man. Great.
No, screw this weather. It should not be 65 degrees in December. This is atrocious. This is
every day.
No, this is terrible. And joining us, first time guest coming at us from across the pond, filmmaker. He's done cans, concert promoter, new metal historian coming to us from London, or I should say the UK, not London. Mr. Nicholas Box. Nick, thank you for joining us.
Hi, guys. Thanks for having me on. I've become a bit addicted to your show recently. So Every night I'm normally laying in bed watching you guys on TV or listening to you on the way to work. So talking to you in flesh, it's just filling that gap.
That's great. Awesome. So Nick, tell us a little bit. Let's tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we'll jump to your new metal years, and then we can actually talk about some of the stuff you've done with filmmaking. I know you did an Andrew WK movie. You've been to Cannes. So let's run the gamut.
Okay, wicked. So I grew up about an hour away from London, and when I was a kid, I was bullied at school, so I didn't have very many friends, and I spent all my time just obsessing over movies, and that's how come I eventually became a filmmaker. But when I was 16 and I left school, we're talking this was like 94, 95, so around the time sort of new metal and punk both broke. And I went to college, and all of a sudden I met friends for the first time. I'd never really had many mates. I had friends that come and go, but they were like the first time I had a solid group of friends, and they were all really into metal and like really into metal. And at that point, I was about as rocky as I come, was like stuff like The Offspring and Dog Eat Dog. I wasn't that into it at that point, but it was around the same time Corman had just dropped. And like as soon as I got these friends, all of a sudden they were introducing me to all these crazy bands. And before I knew it, I was going to rock clubs every week. I was going to gigs like at least once a month at that point. And I just sort of fell into it because for the first time in my life, I had friends. So because I had friends and I was like near London and I'd left school and I had a job and I had enough money to get the train to London all the time, I was going to shows like every night. And it was metal shows and it was punk shows, and it was like every night of the week I'd finish work or college, whatever I was doing that day, hop on a train which took like 45 minutes to an hour, go into the city and I'd go and see a band, and it'd be the same crowd at all the same shows. And so all of a sudden I started getting all these friends. It was like for the first time in my life I had friends. I was going out and girls were paying interest in me, and all of a sudden I found myself just obsessing over rock music. And then it was just the right time really when new metal dropped. So I kind of like always, even though I got more into punk and stuff as I got older, but new metal was what established me as who I was, So now in my 40s, I'm looking back at it, I've become so passionate about those days, and I've set up a Facebook group where we just discuss British new metal, just British new metal bands and the clubs and the gigs. And we only launched about a week ago, and it's been fucking insane this week. It's been amazing. Every day we're just like more and more bands are coming into people's memories and gigs and incidents that happened back on the scene back in the day. And it was just a great time to be involved in it all. I was lucky enough to see a lot of the big American bands like their first ever UK shows. We knew where to go at the venues so we could meet a lot of the people. I'll tell some stories in a bit. I've met everybody from Max Cavalera to Fred Durst. I met them all.
Nice.
I've got funny stories about all of them pretty much. And it was just a really sort of awesome time to be young and be involved in the scene. And then when I got to the age of 20, so I had no friends, and so I had no friends. I was 16. I got friends. And I was out every night. And when I was 20, my parents said to me, "Oh, we're moving to Devon, which is like the west of the country." And I'm like, "That's all right. I'll get somewhere to live, and I'll stay up here with my friends." And they're like, "Okay, if that's what you want to do, that's fine." But my dad kept telling me that, and I kept going off to shows. And one day he goes over to me and goes, "Son, we're moving to Devon." I said, "Yeah, I know that." He goes, "No, we're moving on Saturday." And I'm like, "Right." And he's like, "Well, if you haven't got anywhere to live, you're coming with us." I was like, "Oh shit." So like I had a week to organize this like massive going away party, and my friend, his family had gone away, So we organised this party at the house, and everybody from like, the local rock club we used to go to turned up. It was like something you saw out of a movie. Like we were crowd surfing around the house. I believe a budgie got killed, which not good, but that happened. Someone almost drowned in a pond. Police turned up several times. And then I stagger home the next morning, literally lift a few boxes of shit, put them in a van and drive off to Devon. And I tell my mates, I'll be back in 6 weeks. Just give me enough time to get some money and be back. And then I fell into the trap because like I was down there, and that's like, so Devon is like our California, if you like. It's sunshine and beaches. Apparently it's not really, but I mean it is beaches, but it's normally rain and wind. But so I moved down to the coast, and first night I got there, I was like, right, fuck it, I'm an hour away from the city, I'm going to go to a gig. So I went into the city to see the band Snuff. Do you remember Snuff, the punk band? Yeah, it was Snuff and the Mad Caddies. And I went to this show, had a great time, walked out to get a train home afterwards, and realized that the last train had gone like 3 hours ago. I was used to going to shows in London and like being able to come back like 1, 2, 3 in the morning and still get a train home, and I couldn't get a train home. So that then got me involved in finding my own entertainment. So first I started DJing in a rock club, and this was just as nu metal hit. So I was like the opening guy of each night. So I'd get to play all this new metal shit before the generic rock club stuff would kick in. So I was lucky enough to be playing the stuff that became massive a year or two later first, and I really fell into that world. And that was largely because my best friend back in London was DJ at the biggest rock club in London. So I was copying a lot of the stuff he was playing and then bringing it over, down south. And that's basically just how I like really fell into it, and then eventually got into putting on my own shows. And so that's pretty much my story. I'll tell more about like how I moved in from music to film a little bit later. But let's get rid of this bit first.
So you were bleeding edge without meaning to do so, right? Because like you said, you were pulling in the stuff that to you were interested in. You were like the opening act before they start playing Black Sabbath and Steely Dan and all the 80s stuff that was still big at the time. It was still floating around. And you end up being like the most prescient guy there is because this guy's been playing. I've been hearing this at this club for years. Yeah.
I mean, it was like, awesome. You go to most rock clubs, and it's always the same thing. You get Killing in the Name of, you get Green Day, Basket Case and all that. But I was doing like an hour solid of like, some hardcore stuff as well, like Refused and like, and then like, say Papa Roach early. Everyone Corman was just about getting into the clubs, but I was playing like the newer stuff. I was one of the first to play Linkin Park. And then like, what also I was doing is I'm really techie. So I was on the internet like from really early on. I used to email bands all the time. And one band that I remember searching for nu metal. This was probably around about 98. I think like probably mid 98. I was looking for nu metal bands. And I found the band Endo from Florida. And they had like their own self-made website. So I emailed them, and Zelik, the bass player, got back to me. And me and him made like a friendship online. And he sent me like this massive fuck off box of demo tapes. So I used to take them to shows with me and give them out in like London and stuff. And I gave one to my friend Paul, who was the DJ in the big club. He gave a load out. And then they sent us the album like early, like before it even come out in the States, like we got the album. So we both started dropping like Leave Us Alone from that album and Penicillin, like, 6 months before the album came out. So that band already had a following over here. I don't even think they ever even toured over it. But we really sort of introduced them to the British scene, and they floated around on the scene for years. I go to clubs in different cities and hear it play, and I'm like, it was me. I brought them to this country.
That's awesome.
It was fucking cool. But yeah, so I mean, like, that was it. I was always hunting for new stuff and like finding new stuff, or going to the record shops and getting like the import shit. And then if I heard like a lineup in the States of a load of bands, I'd then like go to the record shop and order these band CDs without even hearing them. I'd just be like, I remember Ultraspank. I just read about Ultraspank online in some like IRC group or something, and I just ordered the album. I did the same with Taproot actually as well. You know, just anytime I heard these names on American bills, I'd just go and pre-order the CD because I knew quite a pretty good record shop, and then I ended up working in a record shop as well, which also helped. And I just used to basically smoke cigarettes, blare new metal out all day long, and just chat to everybody. It was great. It was the greatest times working in that record shop. Probably the best job I ever had.
I love how you brought up IRC, man. I don't think a lot of people remember or know what that is.
No, nobody does, and yet it was. I mean, I think it's still floating around, isn't it? I mean, there's still connections out there. Yeah.
I feel like Discord's kind of taken over from it now, hasn't it? But I mean, yeah, back then it was great. I mean, we used to do it. I used to be a member of the nu metal one and a punk one. And I made so many friends through doing those. And I found out about so many bands just through that. I mean, this was like the early days of file sharing. Like, remember one track. And, you know, it'd take you ages to get it, but you get this track sent to you and stuff like that. And then there was like news groups and shit like that as well that you could join. But you just get like hundreds of emails and just like cipher through it to find anything of interest.
Yeah, you get the file and you're like, how do I open this? Because you had to zip it, you know?
Yeah.
It's like, how the hell do you do this? I remember the first time I actually got someone to send me something on there. I felt like the most accomplished in my life.
It's great when you meet someone like, oh yeah, have you heard this band? I mean, I remember it was like someone was on there telling me about the punk band Civ, and it was like I was so excited to hear this Civ track. And I just remember like this guy was talking out for days, and then when he eventually sent it to me, I just felt so proud. You know, I felt like a hacker, like someone sent me this track.
It was nuts back then. I mean, and we went from IRC, and then there was you guys remember sharing files off of AOL Instant Messenger? You'd create a giant friends list and you'd be able to file share and browse other people's stuff. I mean, you send it and mega upload. Like I remember that when those days were, you know, I mean, Tim and I were talking before we started on the website Lamgo, where you would just go and just look for threads and people would just be throwing stuff up there at warp speed. And it really was a great way. Granted, you got a lot of viruses, a lot of goofy shit as well, but it was a great way to find new stuff and expose yourself without, you know, Nick, we're of the same age, right? Yeah. The old days where you buy a CD and you fucking hate it, but you suck through it and you suffer until you like it because you spent the $15 and you weren't going to waste that money. You were going to convince yourself that I really like this Floodgate album, even though it's terrible.
Yeah. I made that mistake so many times. When I was DJing, it was like, I mean, this was obviously before MP3, so it was like CDs. And so I'd spend a fortune on CDs, and basically at one point I got my entire CD collection robbed. I used to basically carry it around in these big flight cases and some of these big folders. And I DJ'd at the club I worked at one night, went to a party afterwards, got pretty off my face. I will admit it was definitely a drunken mistake. And I think I either left him in McDonald's or at the bus stop. I think that was one of the two places I left him, but literally like, my whole world was over. I was like, shit, what am I going to do? I was like crying. I was like really in a bad place. And my dad just turned around to me and went, son, we've got house insurance. We'll claim it on that. Because apparently, even though I was out of the house, I can still claim it on the house insurance. So I claimed it on the house insurance, and they sent me this catalog for one of the major CD distributors. And I basically had to reorder all of my albums brand new.
Wow.
And it was pretty cool. And I ended up like anything that was shit, I just replaced with something like I wanted.
Dude, that would never happen in the United States. They would have been like, yeah, fuck you.
Yeah, they're like, no, here's $8. Here's $8. I got my car broken into post-college, and my CD binder was stolen. And where I lived was not a nice area, right? It was kind of run down. And I'm thinking, these hoodlums stole 50 CDs from me, and the only one they're really going to enjoy is probably the Jay-Z album. Like, imagine like somebody from stealing CDs thinking they're going to get money for them, and they put in Converge, petitioning the empty sky, right? And The Saddest Day is what comes out of the speakers. Can you imagine like the reaction on someone's face? Like, yeah, we stole all these CDs, it's great. And then you have like, I would, like, no.
It was fucking nuts. I mean, and the weird thing was I lived in quite a small area as well, and I worked in the main record shop. So I thought if anyone's going to try and sell them, they're going to take them to the record shop, and I'm going to know that they're my CDs. but never came about. When we checked eBay all the time, there was always rumors that someone thought they knew someone that had them, but I mean, I got them all replaced, so it wasn't the end of the world. But and a lot of them were, I had the cases still. They just had the discs, so there wasn't a lot they could do. But I did lose some like really good like sort of demos and stuff like that. That
yeah, that's the hard part, right? Your demos and the limited edition stuff, the stuff where you got through the chain of a friend that you enjoyed, and it's like, I mean,
and this is the problem I'm having at the moment. Now I've set this group up, and all these old bands are coming to fruition from years ago. I'm like, I had that, and like some of them are like impossible to get, like especially some like the more local bands and stuff. Like we can't even the members of the band haven't got like copies of the music anymore.
Yeah, they're like, shit, I haven't seen that in 6 years.
Yeah. So it's pretty crazy, but I mean, it's like, I mean, the memories are just kind of flooding back like mad at the moment. But I mean, there was a local band that we all loved, and they released an album, and they were pretty big, like in the south of the UK. Yet no one's got the fucking album. No one at all's got the fucking album. Even members of the band haven't got it. And then a friend from London today messages me and sends me a picture of it and goes, "I fucking got it." I was like, yes.
It's almost like a virtual scavenger hunt.
Yeah,
right. Like trying to find that stuff. We had the guest we had on, Orion, who did when we did the obscure nu metal episode.
Yeah.
He tells me stories all the time. Like he's, trying to find stuff where there are people like 50, 60, $70 for a CD. And you're kind of like, that's kind of crazy. But if you really want physical and there's only X amount of copies, I mean, kind of stuck. It is what it is.
I've decided. I mean, I've got a massive movie collection. I've got over 10,000 movies. I've got like converted my garage into like a video shop. So I'm like, right, I don't need any more movies. So since my breakup and everything, I've decided to start collecting CDs again. And the first thing I've gone for is a nu metal collection. And yeah, I mean, most of it has been pretty easy to find, pretty cheap. But there's some albums that are like really creeping up in price. Like, I mean, like where I get annoyed, like I can pay £2 or £1 for one album, and then something that used to be really common, like Snot Get Some, they want like £8 for it. And I'm just like, what?
Yeah,
that was like common as fuck. So why, something really obscure, like some of these British bands that I've picked up, really obscure, like really small labels and stuff, and I'm paying like pennies for them. But then some of the more well-known stuff is like prices are shooting up.
Yep.
It's nuts. So I'm just getting as much as I can while I can. But yeah, I've over the last sort of month, I think I've built up about 50 or 60 nu metal CDs. I think I'm pretty addicted to it.
Well, eBay?
Yeah, mainly eBay. Done a little bit of Discogs and a few bits in charity shops as well. Like, I found a Spine Shank album in a charity shop the other day for 25p, so that was quite good. So yeah, it's just mainly eBay, like because there's a company over here called Music Magpie where they basically just buy secondhand shit from everybody in the entire country for like pennies, and then they sell it for a few pounds each. And they've got quite a lot of stuff. I've managed to get quite a few obscure albums off of them. Like, so I mean, when we eventually get around to talking about UK nu metal, I mean, like there's some really obscure ones, and I've managed to find them on there. So I was like really happy with that.
Yeah, I looked through the list on the group, and there was so many bands in there. I was like, I've never heard of like most of these.
Well, I mean, we only really had like a couple that really got big your end. I mean, obviously there's the Lost Prophets, but we don't talk about them anymore.
Right,
so.
right.
Well, we do. I mean, at the end of the day, there's 5 fucking talented guys in that band, other than he who shall not be named. And they worked so hard, and they were fucking incredible live. Literally, I mean, they were back in the day, they were so good live. They were just insane. So I mean, they well deserve what they got, and it's a shame that like they are pretty much forgotten now.
They all suffered for his transgressions, right?
And it was like, I know they did try and do something with the guy from Alexis on Fire, didn't they? And I believe they did do like an album with him. I think there was a project with him, but I don't think much came from it.
Wasn't it Jeff from Thursday? They did a record.
That was it, Thursday. Yeah, that's the one. Yeah.
Okay. It was one of those. Was it No Devotion?
Yeah, something like that. I remember him coming out and my friend going to see him, but by that point I was a little bit further away from it all.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, they were great, and then the other ones that got big were did In Me get big over in the States?
Who was it?
In Me, did they get big in the States?
Jay, what
I miss?
Did In Me get big in the States?
No.
I don't think so.
I mean, In Me were pretty good. I mean, they were more of the rockier side of nu metal, but they were still nu metal. But they were like probably one of our biggest produced ones. Because one thing you'll notice when we do eventually get into looking at our stuff and your stuff, our stuff's a lot more aggressive and a lot raw. Ours borrows more from hardcore. Whereas like when you did your obscure nu metal episode and everything sounded like Taproot, I can guarantee you maybe like I'd say like one band in the whole UK scene sounds like Taproot. Everything was a lot more aggressive. It was a lot more borderline hardcore in places. And obviously we didn't have the production values for the most part. So everything sounds a lot more raw as well.
And that adds a lens of heaviness, right, Nick? Right, I mean. not being so clean and not being so overproduced. That for lack of a better word, that grunginess adds a dimension to the sonicality that back then, and when all those bands were banging out albums, it was kind of too clean.
Yeah,
too crisp.
It is. I mean, it's like I've gone through like re-listening to all these British bands and then listening to American bands at the same time, and I must admit that sometimes some of my favorite American bands I'm struggling to listen to because they are way too polished. I'm so used to that raw, aggressive sound that a lot of our bands had. So yeah, I mean, there was definitely a more of a underground sort of vibe, and it did feel a bit more like, thinking back to the way the scene was, it was a lot more like the punk and hardcore scene, the nu metal scene was. And a lot of these people that have come out of the woodwork enjoying the group, I remember a lot of them from back in the day, a lot of faces, not necessarily names, but I remember faces. And it was more of, they were like the sort of hardcore crew that were into the nu metal, and it wasn't all spiky hair and
big pants.
I mean, we all had the baggy jeans, but yeah, I mean, it was there's another British band, the one that Logan Mader produced that did get big in the States, Twin Method.
Oh yeah.
Aren't they the most cliched looking nu metal band I've ever seen in my life?
Yeah.
Did the term nu metal become like the bad, dirty word over there as well? Because in the States, like I'd say like 06, 07, like that was the dirty word.
Yeah, I would say probably about 2003, 2004. It sort of drifted over here when all like the sort of screamo and the metalcore and stuff came in.
Yeah,
it fizzled so quick. It really did. I mean, like as soon as we had all those Welsh bands like Funeral for a Friend and Hondo McLean and Bullet for My Valentine, when all that lot started coming out, it really sort of it just died. It just really fall flat.
Well, that was when you guys had your own new wave of, what was it called again, Jay?
The new wave of American heavy metal. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, but then they had the British side of it. It's like the new wave. Yeah. So like Bullet for My Valentine. Yeah. As soon as they came out, I guess that's when people over there were like, "Oh, nu metal's the dirty word now." Because you said nu metal 4 years ago around here, they'd be like, "Who? What?"
Yeah.
It's like
it was definitely like Funeral for a Friend,
which I love. They're a great band.
I love that EP and that first album. Awesome. After that, it was. Yeah.
Have you ever heard Hondo McLean? They were like,
no.
Check Hondo McLean again. Okay. Only want the EP from that same era. After that, they went shit. But they were from the same area. All of those bands were from Wales. So like the Lost Prophets kind of opened that door to Wales, and then like all these other Welsh bands sort of like dominated. But yeah, I mean, so like the early Funeral for a Friend, the early Hondo McLean, I liked all them. The same with like going stateside again. I liked early Finch. I loved early Finch.
Oh, I love Finch.
That first Finch album was amazing, and I saw him
brilliant.
When I came over. Brilliant. Saw him again in like 2007, 2008. Garbage. It was just like awful.
They can't get along as a band. Like that reunion album that they just recently did, was it Back to Oblivion, was really, really good.
Dude, and Murder Me is such a great song.
Oh, that I listened to that album front to back. And then did you hear Phantasma, which is this is the album they delivered to the label. It was meant to be the follow-up to Back to Oblivion. And the label said, nah, we don't like it. So it's basically all the demos, but it's produced. It sounds like the sequel to Back to Oblivion. And it's like, they can't get along. I don't know if it's the band or if it's the singer, but Yeah, when they did that live DVD, when they reunited and did the first album in its entirety, I bought that thing so fast I almost melted my goddamn credit card.
That record is sonic perfection.
Yes,
I mean,
yes.
I was only ever really into the first one, and then I went and saw them. They were doing like most of that set in Manchester, like 2000. I think it's like 2008. I think it must have been. And I was just like horrified. They weren't the band that I saw like 5 or 6 years previous. But then going back to like, in my eyes, me and my friends would have a joke. I always thought nu metal died when Trapped released Headstrong. I thought that was like the end of nu metal. I thought that song killed it. And then, funny enough, all the shit that they caused last year online.
Right.
Like, but yeah, I mean, I always called that like the death of nu metal. So what was that? It was like 2004, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yep.
Then,
yeah.
You're not wrong though, because I kind of think when that song comes out, that's when you start getting more of like the Breaking Benjamins and the Cedars and all that stuff. So nu metal kind of goes to the radio rock side, and
then, the proto butt rock, right? We called it in a previous episode. I mean, I like them, but the Chevelles, the Disturbed, the Breaking Benjamins, that stuff gets big. Papa Roach.
You guys have Download right over there, right?
Yeah, we have Download. Yeah.
So that's basically like our. What would you say that is, Jay?
I'd say it's like Ozfest and Not Fest, but just over like
the European sensibility when it comes to big shows, it's way different because they will literally do a mixed bill. Where here it's still a little segregated. Like rock, what is it? It's the one that's in Daytona. What's it called?
Rockville.
Rockville just announced their lineup, and it's not bad. I mean, but like their headliners are like what, like Guns N' Roses and like all these other bands, and then like down the bill you've got Hatebreed, you've got the Black Dahlia Murder, you've got Mood Ring, right? So
I mean, Download's a bit like that too. I mean, like
we're getting there.
I mean, we had Download, was it 2000? I went to pretty much every Download from when it started until 2012. That's when I stopped going. And there was one year, it was Guns N' Roses when they were doing that Democracy album thing.
The Chinese Democracy.
It wasn't really, it was just Axl Rose and a bunch of other people. And like,
bunch of scrubs,
everyone was going sick for them. And all I cared about was like literally one of my favorite bands of all time were Clashing with them, Sick of It All. So like, you got Sick of It All on one stage and Guns N' Roses on the other. And I'm just like, straight into Sick of It All. But then
if it isn't the Use Your Illusion lineup, fuck off.
Yeah,
I never got into GNR. Never.
Really?
Even as a little kid, it's weird. I had all the albums on tape as a little kid, but I was never really into it. I always preferred like Motley Crue and even Bon Jovi to Guns N' Roses.
Wow, it's weird hearing a UK guy say he prefers Bon Jovi over.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
The thing is, every friend I had that ever learned to play guitar straight away is like playing Guns N' Roses. I'm just like, oh, shut up. Well, then when you put the music channel on, right, and then like fucking November Rain comes on, it goes on for like, what is it, 11 minutes?
It's like, oh, I don't have time for this 9-minute video. Jesus.
He's like, I mean, Meatloaf does long songs, and they're more entertaining than that bloody song. But yeah, so I never really got into like GNR. But I mean, I did see a lot of like 80s rock bands and stuff when I first got into music, because my friends, the first friends I got were all so diverse. So some were like into proper extreme metal, some were into like nu metal, and some were into like classic 80s rock. So I got to go and see a lot. Like one of my claims to fame that I was talking to my mate about the other day is, do you know the band Thunder? The 80s rock band, for the door. My friend dragged me to see them in like 97 or 98. They released a live album. On the back cover of the live album, I'm stood there in a Cold Chamber t-shirt.
That's awesome.
I ordered a copy on eBay the other day just so I could have it. Hasn't turned up yet, but I can't wait for it. And there was a video as well, so I wouldn't mind getting the video shit from that as well. Just stood there in a Cold Chamber t-shirt watching Thunder. So yeah, I got to see quite a bit, but I mean, like, it was great going to see like a lot of the first shows. I mean, like, the Limp Bizkit, first ever Limp Bizkit show was supporting Soulfly, so it was like Soulfly's first UK show. They had Cold. It was Soulfly, Limp Bizkit, and Cold. Now I'd got $3 bills on import, and I was like obsessed with it. I thought I was the cool kid because I had the album and I loved it, and I had the hoodie, and I was like so freaking excited to see Limp Bizkit. I just was dead excited about it. And we went to London, and Soulfly did a signing. So we went and saw them, met Max Cavalera, and he was taking the piss out of my hair because I got my sister to put my hair in little plaits and shit. You know, I was 19. And then after that, we went into McDonald's, and Cold played an acoustic set downstairs in McDonald's just because they were there. Really cool. And then we always used to go to the London Astoria, and we used to wait outside and meet a lot of the bands outside there. And because the buses would drop them off, and a lot of the bands would just come out and see everybody. And every time I went to a show, I'd meet someone. And Fred Durst just starts wandering around the crowd, and everyone's running up to him and taking pictures. Really nice guy. I got a picture with him. He asked if there's anywhere decent to eat, and I told him there was a Subway, because Subway was pretty new in the UK at that point. Even though you'd had it since the 70s, we literally just got it. And I said, there's a Subway over there. And he's like, oh, I like Subway. Have you had the meatball? I'm like, no, I'll try it, and all this sort of stuff. And he was just dead sound. He was like the nicest guy. And I was like, oh, you know, I was saying to my friend, they're going to be my favorite band. They're going to be my favorite band. They're going to be brilliant. They came on and played that night, and they were bloody garbage. They were awful. Wow. They were like so bad. It was ridiculous. So much so that, I mean, obviously the thing is it was like, obviously Max had left Sepultura, formed Soulfly, so there was still a predominantly metal crowd there, and a lot of these people that weren't quite grasping what nu metal was at that point. And also, I mean, like, $3 bills wasn't that big. It was, the only way you could get it was on import. So there was, you know, I mean, Kerrang,
really,
Kerrang had just started to mention them. But I mean, it was still pretty early on. You know, they weren't really that big over here at that point. I mean, they were above Cold, but they weren't, you know, they were still support, and Cold got a better reception than they did. And when he starts doing Faith, and he's basically like, you know, asking the crowd to sing back, and they're not singing back, he flipped out. They pushed the decks over. They threw one of the monitor speakers off the stage, and they stormed off stage. They were crap. But then a year later, when Significant Other came out and they blew up, I saw them at a festival, and they were insane. And I've always said that I think they're more of a festival band than a club band.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Yeah.
I mean, the best time I saw them was when they came back from the hiatus. Was that like 2009?
I think so. Yeah.
They played Download, and that is hands down one of the best shows I've ever seen. I mean, they were amazing. But that first show, I was so disappointed. I was like heartbroken, because I was that obsessed and that excited about meeting them and seeing them, and like, you know, Fred was really cool to me, and I was like, yes.
And then they put on a terrible show.
Terrible show.
Was Slipknot big over there when that first record
Slipknot
came out?
was huge, but what they did with Slipknot is when they got signed to Roadrunner, and before the album came out, they purposely, they do this with a lot of the bands, they targeted us first. Okay. So even though obviously they had a small reputation in the States, they hammered them over here first. So basically, Eyeless was released on a CD with Kerrang magazine, because Kerrang was obviously huge back then. Yeah. Eyeless was a cover CD with Kerrang, and Kerrang were covering it for ages. I was part of the Roadrunner Street team, and they sent us like massive stacks of stickers, like months in advance. And the weird thing is in the area I used to live in, there was my friend used to live near a school, and I stuck one of these stickers on a lamppost. And a few years ago, I went back, like sort of 4 years ago, and there's still half the sticker on the lamppost. And I'm just like so proud of that. But yeah, I mean, they really push Slipknot over here first. They did it with quite a few of the American bands. I mean, Andrew WK was another one. I mean, he was like pushed over here first as well. I think because we're similar markets, I think they try and test stuff over here and build the hype before they like start mass marketing them out there. But I mean, like, you know, Slipknot Mania just came pretty damn fast. I mean, I remember like, you know, standing outside the R Price record shop at like 8 a.m, waiting for them to open to get the album on the day it came out. I mean, I was that excited for it. And all we'd heard at that point was Eyeless. I think they might have leaked Surfacing as well at some point on like one of the music channels. But other than that, Eyeless was the only track that I'd actually heard, you know, and we were playing it in the clubs.
Was your guys' release day Tuesdays as well back then?
Yeah, it was mid. It was definitely midweek. I don't know if it's Tuesday. It was definitely a midweek. It wasn't. It was never like beginning or end, because videos always came out on a Monday, and albums would normally a couple of days later.
Yeah, we were Tuesday. You guys were like Wednesday, I believe.
Yeah.
I think it was the day after.
Yeah. We got it.
So basically, when we got it, you did, because you guys are the 6 hours after. So you're pretty much the same.
Yeah.
Now it's Friday here. How about, is it the same there?
I you know what? It's been so long since I've like followed a new album coming out. I don't even know what day it is anymore. I mean, films used to always be a Friday, but now they're like a Wednesday. Or a Tuesday. Like, I know we're getting Spider-Man next week. I think a day or two before you. So yeah, which is pretty good. Now,
does like Ireland and Scotland get the same amount of exposure for bands, especially back then? Like, did they hit them parts of the country as well?
Yeah, I mean, especially Scotland. I mean, Ireland was a bit different. I mean, some bands would play. Obviously, I think in the 90s, obviously Belfast was still a bit touch and go, so not everyone wanted to go there.
Right.
But then, I mean, when I was touring with bands, I mean, some of the best shows and nights out I've ever had have been in Belfast. I mean, it's an awesome city. But I mean, I think Dublin got a fair few shows, but I mean, Scotland was treated just like the rest of the UK. So if someone played London and Manchester, they always played Glasgow. So Scotland had just as much of it as we had. You know, it was fully shared. Because what you got to remember is, like, obviously, you can drive from one end of the UK to the other in about a day. You guys, you got one state, and you're like, you know, 2 days driving across it.
Right.
So. I mean, we are a small country. I mean, like, you know, you're always about 3 hours from London, no matter wherever you are, pretty much, give or take. But then, so it's like when I moved to Devon, so obviously I moved right to the west, but I met a friend there who was from the same area as me and was friends with my best friend who DJ'd. So we used to, like, she used to drive us on a Friday night down to London so we could go clubbing in the centre of London. And then when the clubs closed at like sort of 4 or 5 in the morning, we'd go get breakfast and she'd drive us back. And we were doing this like weekly. It was freaking insane.
Damn, 4 or 5. Shit, they close us at 1 or 2.
Yeah, 1 or 2 o'clock. Bars close.
Down, it depends where you are in the country. Like down where I was living, I mean, the club I worked at used to close at 2 or 3. But in London, like, you know, being like, you know, cities, big cities and stuff, they were open until like sort of 4 or 5 in the morning.
So let me ask you this, Nick. Was there? I'm sorry, Tim. Was there ever any bands that broke over here that by the time they got across the pond to you, you guys heard them and you were like, "Yo, this is terrible. Why is anybody paying attention?"
Yeah, I mean, there was stuff like what was the ones with the old man in the music box on the front cover, 40 Below Summer. Like, they never really, by the time they got over here, they were crap. Weirdly enough, when I was talking to my friend about this, and you guys, it sparked in my head. Nothing Face, right? Literally, Nothing Face over here was such a small blip. It was insane. Like, I remember that one album. I remember owning the album. It was the one you were talking about. What was it called?
Violence.
Yeah, I remember that coming out. I remember having it. I don't really remember playing it in the clubs when I was DJing. I spoke to another friend about it, and he doesn't really remember much, and I'm pretty sure they may have came over with someone, but they didn't really make much of an impact over here at all. And it wasn't until
they toured the UK with why do I feel like it was Stereo Mud for some? It was like a weird tour that happened over there. It definitely have S Band, but they definitely went over there because I remember that tour announcement.
So I mean, it was weird. They never really sort of
resonated.
Yeah, never really peaked over here. I never remember anybody going into the club and saying, "Can you play this track?" And normally by that point as well, there was, you know, anything that was cool, people were coming and telling me what was cool. You know, have you heard this, have you heard that? And, you know, I had some really good recommendations. But yeah, I don't really ever remember them ever peaking over here.
Did you guys get Family Values when that was going off?
We didn't get it, no. We didn't get it, but we did get a big Corn tour around the same time. And they had like, it was kind of like a bit of a mix of rap and rock, but it wasn't like the way you got it. There was always rumors we were going to get it. We had Ozfest, obviously. And then we moved on to Download, but no, we never got.
How does a band like Mudvayne do over there? Because I feel like they would be a big one over there.
They did huge, yeah.
That's
they were really big, yeah. They were really big over here. So were American Head Charge were big over here, and Drowning Pool, or obviously Drowning Pool got huge everywhere, but so I always thought Drowning Pool were a joke. They always reminded me of a disco band, like Black Ladies, you know, like you sing along at a wedding and you got your grandma doing like, what, nothing's wrong with me, you know. It's just like, and I never got into Disturbed either. I hated Disturbed right from
I still hate it. It's terrible.
Right from the get-go, I hated Disturbed, but because I was working in a club, everybody wanted me to play Disturbed all the time. And I mean, the first album was bad. And then I was at Ozfest and I was stood about 5 foot away from that David Drainen guy. And he was telling this girl off because she had piercings and tattoos and telling her that she ruined her body. And I thought, what dick? This is like a fan come to meet you. And you're like telling her that, you know, you've ruined your body. And then
didn't he have shit sticking out of his face?
He still has shit sticking out of his face.
Yeah, what the fuck?
He let his success get to his head.
Yeah. And that second album was just Creed with monkey noises.
Yeah.
Is that Dropping Plates, Tim? Is that on the second album?
Yeah.
Is it Dropping Plates? So, Nick, you kind of answered what was going to be my Funhouse Mirror question, which would be, was there stuff you came across that got kind of big over here that you were sitting there listening like, you know, what the fuck is this? Like, why are people into this?
Yeah. Before you answer that though, like, I just want to say this before I forget. It seems like from the way you talk, like a lot of the UK people liked theatrical bands like Slipknot and Mudvayne and say like a Mushroom Head. It seems like you guys kind of dig that stuff.
We like that. It was unique, you know. I mean, I think there was definitely a lot of love for that sort of stuff. I mean, obviously, like Marilyn Manson was huge over
Static X and
we've got Cradle of Filth, you know. Again, that's
cool. Okay. Sorry to cut you off, Jay. I just wanted to ask that before I forgot.
No, I just wanted to know, like, aside from like Disturbed and stuff, Nick, which obviously I would agree with you. Was there other bands that you came across that it seemed like they were making a push in the States and everybody was backing it and you're listening to it and you're going, nah, I'm not feeling it.
There was stuff that I personally had big opinions on. Like, I'm quite an opinionated person. I mean, like System of a Down, for example. I love the first System of a Down album. I absolutely adore it. Toxicity is crap. It is a dumbed down version of the first album, right? And it's all just poppy and shit. I mean, all of my friends love it. I argue with people over this for years, but I hated that album, but I loved the first album. I mean, when their first UK show was 3 nights in a row at the Astoria supporting Slayer and Sepultura, just as Derek Green joined. So, you know, and I mean, I remember seeing them live and I was just blown away by them, blown away. And then they just went crap. There was other bands like that I thought never got the attention they deserved, like Boy Hits Car.
Yeah.
Like that first Boy Hits Car album is amazing.
It is good.
Like, it's so good. And I know like the later stuff got a bit rockier and it lost the new metal sound, but that first album is insane. And I saw them at Reading Festival play in between System of a Down and Dillinger Escape Plan. And
that's a sandwich.
Yeah. And they honestly blew my mind. They were fantastic. And I never really knew they carried on until about 10, 12 years ago when I was talking to someone. And they said, oh, I've seen them. They played in this pub in Manchester. I'm like, what? He went about 6 months ago. They played in Manchester in a pub. I'm like, if I'd known that, I would have like gone. They were brilliant. Like, they were really good. And I never thought they ever got the attention that they deserved. So that was one. But then I've got funny opinions. Like, some of my favorite new metal albums are ones that people laugh at. Like, I love the Methods of Mayhem album. Like,
that album is fun. I'm sorry. I will defend that to my dying day.
I freaking love that.
Can we talk about, Nick, can we talk about the brilliance that is the Get Naked video? Right? You have Tommy Lee Jones with a giant fake remote. Fucking, you have Little Kim with pasties on a giant rooster singing about a cock. Yeah. Like, it's like, I mean, insane. George Clinton and Fred Durst, like,
that's fucking amazing. A couple of hours ago, while I was just sitting there waiting for my tea, I was watching an old live set from 2000, and when they played that, they actually had real strippers on stage just get naked.
It was kind of nuts. I think I did see them at, I think it was Ozfest 2000 they played.
Yeah.
I mean, it is definitely a product of its time, but there is no way you can't listen to that and kind of at least smile and grin.
It sums up everything about nu metal, and that's why I like it. And then the other one that I really like that people give me shit for is the Vanilla Ice one.
It's great.
It's amazing.
That version of Ice Ice Baby is better than the original, hands down.
I picked it up again recently. I've been listening to it this week. It's such a solid album. It's really good. I mean, Ross Robertson produced it, obviously, so that's what gives it its thing. Now, he did do a follow-up nu metal album as well, but it's really hard to get hold of.
Did he really?
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
I didn't either.
The second one was called Bipolar, but it wasn't produced by Ross, and it did have a few rap tracks on it as well, but it was predominantly nu metal still. But that one's like over here, it's really hard to get hold of. It is on Spotify, I think, but the one beforehand isn't on Spotify.
Wow.
But yeah, I wouldn't mind getting hold of that at some point. But that was it. There was things like that I was more into, like the quirkier ones, you know. Who else was it? I mean, I said for many years, but I've changed my opinion recently. I always said that, isn't it funny that the best nu metal album was recorded by a metal band, and that was like Burning Red. I mean, for years I thought the Burning Red was probably one of the best nu metal albums. I think I've overdone it over the years because I do cringe at it a little bit now, and I keep having flashbacks of Rob with the massive spikes in his hair. But for years I thought that was like one of the most solid nu metal albums. But I've learned recently that I think it's a lot better album.
Well, I will say that I will give you a little bit of credit, Nick. It's not probably as bad as your brain is making it out to be. Supercharger though is.
Yeah, Supercharger was awful.
Horrible.
Awful.
Who did we interview with that, Tim? Oh, we had I don't think we've had that episode come out yet, have we?
It hasn't, no.
We did an In Defense Of, Nick, where we had someone who's a fan of an album that we don't like come on and try and convince us that we're wrong. And John came on and tried to defend Supercharger. And the conversation we had was pretty great because it's just some of the lyrics are so terrible. What was it? The silicone tits line and antibiotics or whatever. Like
what was the big single? Wasn't the big single like Bulldozer or something like that?
Bulldozer.
Bulldozer. Yeah, that was it. Yeah. Oh, that was a bad album. I don't even remember playing it in the clubs. It was that.
What sort of off topic, but apropos, Tim and I, before we started, Nick, we were talking about the Meep podcast. I don't know if you listen. This is Ryan Rainbow, and he does all of Roadrunner. So it's just Roadrunner albums.
Okay.
And brilliant. This past week, he did an episode where he interviewed Mike Fleischman and Matt Baumbach from VOD talking about Imprint.
Yeah, brilliant.
And, obviously they were touring with a lot of these bands with Ozfest and stuff. And Mike Fleischman is telling stories about Rob Flynn coming in the van and yelling, "You guys got to get a pair of these things. They're called Jenkos." Like, and he's totally making fun of like everything that was going on with them. But yeah, every time I think of Rob Flynn now, I'm like, the guy chases trends and he does fairly well for himself doing it.
Yeah. I remember like there was Kerrang interviews with him at the time Burning Red came out, and it was all this like he was abused and all these like stories, but it was written like it was coming out of a book. It was supposed to be like a live interview. But just diverting again, because you mentioned Roadrunner, two other underrated bands that were assigned to Roadrunner back in the day that did incredible albums: Step Kings and the Workhorse Movement.
Wow. We're gonna have you on, Nick. We're just gonna do an album on the Workhorse. We're just gonna do an episode on the Workhorse Movement because I want to go in on this.
Right. Why did they not get huge? Why did they fizzle out?
Because at the same time you had Slipknot and Nickelback and
and Roadrunner is notorious for picking a band on their roster and saying we're gonna make that band these guys. I saw them play Tattoo the Earth. They were one of the bands that played on the rotating stage outside, the two stages. I think, Tim, we talked about them on the rock nu metal episode that comes out this week. I think
we did.
Yeah.
That's why I was surprised to hear it. Yeah.
Brilliant. Both those albums dropped around the same time, and they were just both brilliant and then just, forgotten so quickly.
I thought you were going to go with 5.0 for Forgotten Roadrunner nu metal. I thought that's where you were going to go.
What about Out, the French band that were on Roadrunner?
Don't remember that.
Yeah, me
Out.
either.
They had an album called Exposition. They were a good band, really good band. I saw them with Polkus and Cycle Fly. But again, Polkas is another one we cover when I come around to doing the British bands. Because
I know that name, Pulkas, right?
Yeah,
I have definitely seen that. Yes,
they were signed to Earache, and they were a really hard-working band. They did a lot of shows in the UK and around Europe. And from what I've read recently, because I was always confused why they never got as big as they should have, because they did some pretty good support slots and they had like good reviews and good singles. And apparently it was when nu metal broke, they got management that was really trying to push them to a major label, and they weren't allowing Earache to do their stuff with them, and they just fizzled out, which was a shame because they were an insane band. But I say I'll cover them when we get around to talking about the British stuff.
It's funny. It's funny because when you think of Earache, you think of like Napalm Death and shit like that, and you don't think nu metal for Earache.
Yeah, but Tyler, haven't they?
But Tyler's new Earache. But I will say this though. Remember, Earache tried to make the turn into when we all thought electronic music was going to be the thing. They tried to make the turn with Johnny Violence, Ultraviolence, which I love those two albums. I think they're fucking great. Right. Oh man, me and Nick could definitely hang out and break some shit. But they tried to make that turn, and then it never kind of blew up. Right, yeah. Like they tried. Roadrunner tried it with Junkie XL. I mean, granted, God bless that guy. He's gone on to do an amazing career of himself. But they were trying to get ahead of the trend again, and I just think it was too early and too out there.
I'll tell you what is funny.
PBT did it too.
Yep.
Yeah.
One of Roadrunner's first acts was, are you guys familiar with the soap opera Neighbours? It's an Australian soap opera. It's pretty massive, been running for like 30 years. Well, one of the stars of that was a guy called Craig Mclaughlin, and he released this single called Mona. It was a proper sort of pop rock song, and Roadrunner released it.
Oh, wow.
It's like,
jeez.
We're talking early 90s, so probably about 92, 93. And yeah, always makes me laugh that came out on Roadrunner.
Yeah, I gotta check that. That's fun.
But then Roadrunner tried to branch out into punk and hardcore for a bit, didn't they? Because they had Madball for a little bit. And they had Dog Eat Dog as well for a little bit.
Yeah, definitely.
So they were definitely trying to branch out into that. They even had Shelter, which I thought was
Shelter, who led to VOD.
Yeah.
They did the Earth Crisis album, Breed the Killers, which is criminally underrated.
Their best record, yeah.
Really?
I think it's their best record. I love the
Seasons
on that
of
record.
Gomorrah.
Yeah, Gomorrah's Seasons End. Yeah. But you know what? I'm gonna go back and listen to that because I haven't listened to that in a long time.
Breed the Killers is one of the, if you're a guitar player, it's one of the funnest records to play along to. I mean, just in my opinion, but that's a great record. And then they put out the nu metal record. Well, people call nu metal record.
Oh, Slither.
Slither, yeah.
Was that Roadrunner or was that Victory? That was Roadrunner?
I think it was Victory, but it's just funny because how much hate that they got for that record.
And it's actually not bad. If you listen to it,
it's not that bad.
No, it's not. I mean, there's a couple songs where you're like, Carl, why are you singing? But why is it stop?
I know. When I interviewed Scott, I was gonna we talked a little bit about Slither, but he was just like, yeah.
But, so Nick, let's turn the conversation a bit because we're a bit in. Let's talk about your history as a filmmaker.
Right, cool. So basically, as a kid, I was obsessed with film. Like, because I didn't have any friends, like I said before. I just basically, in the school holidays, instead of out playing with the other kids, I'd cycle my bike from one video shop to the next, hang out in there and help them out until they got fed up with me, give me a free rental, and then I'd cycle to the next shop. So I basically educated myself on film, and I always wanted to become a filmmaker. And then, because I wasn't doing very well at school because of the bullying and stuff like that, people said, no, you can't do that, think of a real job. But it was something I always wanted to do. And then through the music, obviously, like I said, I got into putting on my own shows, and I got really into punk rock and sort of the whole DIY ethic. And I realized, I was putting on gigs for bands and tours for bands from all over the world. I did it with nothing. And, I was into independent film as well. Like I was big into Kevin Smith, and I was hugely into Troma. like massive community trauma. So I realized, I thought, well, you can make a film for nothing. So I've got punk rock attitude to life. I'm going to make films. Now, this is where the whole filmmaking thing crosses over into music. So I wanted to make films, and I knew that I might need a bit of help. So I decided I wanted to go to university. But at this point, I was like 27. I was 27, so a bit old for uni. But I realized I could still do it. You could do a thing called an access course that would get you the grade you needed to get accepted onto a university course. So I'd done this big festival where I had like loads of bands, and it almost killed me. It really did almost kill me. It was one of the best things I'd ever done, but it at the same time like knocked me for six.
The stress,
the stress of it all, and I'd lost so much money on it, and there was ruptions with the venue, and the landlady at the venue and me fell out, and she wanted to take me to court, and it was under a misunderstanding, and I just didn't need it. It was something I was doing for fun as a hobby, and it got to its peak. So I wanted to go to uni, but I also had another idea, is I wanted to make a documentary, right? So my choices were, do I send myself to university, or do I make a documentary, right? Now, the documentary I wanted to make was about a friend. So we're going to rewind a few years, and that friend's name was Andrew WK. So basically back in 2001, 2002, when Andrew WK dropped, me and my friend were blown away by him, like just blown away. Like it was like how someone could be like that positive and that like energetic and fucking mental. And we saw him live, and it was at Reading Festival, and there was like people there booing him when he walks onto stage, right? Within 10 seconds of him starting to play, everybody that was booing him was running around dancing with massive smiles on their face, right? Like it was the greatest thing you'd ever seen, right? And it was like, for me, for someone that likes very fast and aggressive, positive music, it fucking changed my life. I mean, in an instant, I mean, it was literally like one of the best things I'd ever seen in my life. And like my friend Chris was the same. And with Andrew WK, it's very culty. If you like Andrew WK, you like Andrew WK. You know, it's not just like he's all right. So we really got the WK bug. So a few months later, we went to see him in concert, and we really wanted to meet him. Now, my friend Chris is like, this guy's got an amazing talent of getting himself anywhere he wants to be. I mean, he will blag his way into anything. And he basically wrote to Andrew's record company and told them that he started a magazine and that we were going to go and interview Andrew WK. So they gave us a thing to go to his van before the show. So we went in as me, Chris, our friend Alex. I had two other friends that gate crashed it halfway through, but I'll get into that in a bit. And we sat there, and Andrew's very prim and proper in that. And we sat down, and Chris said, look, I've got a confession to make. I haven't got a magazine yet. I just want to start one. We just used this because we wanted to meet you because we're really big fans. And he went, this is real. This is it. He cancelled his interviews for the rest of the day and just hung out with us.
Oh, that's awesome.
Right? He just hung out with us. I mean, he's like the same age as me. So like, you know, but he just literally hung out with us in his van, and we just chatted shit about gigs, about music. It was just freaking insane. And then
that's awesome.
Got us into the show, and you know, was like dedicated, ready to die to us. Then after the show, because he's one of those guys that will hang out and meet every fan, hung out with us. Then we gave him a copy of the Transformers the movie soundtrack on CD. And we stayed in touch, like literally stayed in touch. And Chris, my friend, eventually got his own website magazine that he said he was going to start. He actually started it. And that got really successful. So every time Andrew would come over, we'd go and meet up with Andrew, hang out with him, and we'd do an interview for Chris's magazine and become friends with him. And over the years, you know, this was every time he came over. And if I wasn't at a show, like when he came over when I was, so before I get to uni. So anyway, I wanted to make a documentary about him. So I emailed him and I said to him, Andrew, I want to do a documentary about you. And he says, right, well, if you come out to New York, I'll meet up with you and we can do it. And I was like, brilliant. I said, I'm considering doing this or going to uni. And he says, well, I'd go to uni. I'm always here. I can do something for you later down the line. So he basically told me to go to university. And because I was so like obsessed with Andrew WK is something to go to uni. So I just went to uni. Then when I was at uni, whenever he came to London, like Chris would go and see him, and Andrew would phone me up when he was with Chris, or he phoned me up when I had my exams and wished me good luck on my exams.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was freaking crazy. Like the guy is like so positive and insane. It was just like it was overwhelming that I'd like become friends with a rock star. I've met so many famous people and from bands, but like becoming friends with someone like that was just really fucking cool. So I went off to uni, and when I was at uni, I started making films. And I made some like grindhouse type films because it was around like sort of 2007, 2008. So grindhouse was big. So I made a film about Killer Jesus called Brutal Jesus, and I spent £10 on buying a Bible and a bedsheet, and got this guy to dress up as Jesus. I got a load of squat punks to play victims, and he just kills these people by strangling them or bashing them to the head death with a Bible. And I was YouTubing at the time and doing like DVD updates and stuff, and got with the horror community on there. And I started sending this film around, and all of a sudden, in the space of a year, I'd sold 3,000 copies of it on DVD. Then I signed a distribution deal in the States, and this thing ended up in fucking Walmart.
That's cool.
That is insane.
All right.
You can still find it on the Walmart website now. Me and my ex-partner, we found it in a Walmart bargain bin once when we were out there, and we found it in FYE as well. But yeah, you can actually buy my films in Walmart, which is pretty crazy.
That is insane.
So off of the back of that, I then made a couple more trashy ones. I made one called Violent Vicar, which was much the same as that one. Dracula versus the Ninja on the Moon. I then got into producing indie horrors for other people of the same sort of level as me, and I did some anthology films. I did I don't want to offend people here. I did a film with a very, very offensive title, but it wasn't an offensive film. It was a film about censorship, but I called it Mr. Rape's First Date. And the idea was like, give it a shocking title, but it was actually a film about like censorship, and it kind of worked. It sold fairly well, especially on like the convention scene. But before I knew it, I was getting invited to go to conventions in Germany, getting flown out to conventions, and like basically, hanging out with people I idolized as a kid, like signing autographs to all these like weird horror films I was making. And it was great. For once a year, I'd feel like a minor celebrity for a weekend, and I got to meet a lot of legends that I looked up to, like spent a weekend with Fred Williamson. That was cool. Spent a weekend, I got to know Mr. Lordy from the band Lordy, and he invited me out to his restaurant in the Arctic Circle, and became friends with like Ari Lehman, who plays Jason in Friday the 13th. He's also got his own metal band, Jason themed metal band. So I became friends with him. And it was some good times. For a few years I was going to these conventions, and I made a horror comedy that was had a bit more mainstream appeal than like my other films did, called She's Dead. I made that in 2012. That won me some awards. But back to Andrew. So I wanted to make this documentary of Andrew, but it was hard trying to afford to get over to the States to do it and all this sort of stuff. So I said one day we'll do it. And it just so happened in 2012 there was a festival going on in the UK called Heavy Fest.
Okay.
It was more of a hardcore fest. I mean, they had bands like Converge play, and Converge played, the Descendants played, so I like that side of it. A lot of metalcore bands and things like that, but Andrew was one of the headliners. But this fest was at a safari park. So Chris said, well, let's do an interview like we normally do when he comes over for the website, but we'll do it at the safari park, and we can ask him how hard the animals are partying. It'd be fun. Like, we know what Andrew's like. We know he's like a fun guy. He'd be up for that. So we messaged him and said, is it cool if we just do like an interview and go around the safari park? And he's like, yeah. So Chris spoke to the safari park. They arranged to give us a private safari around this park in a Jeep. And it seemed amazing. It seemed like going to be a real fun little interview for the website. Mm-hmm. So we met up with Andrew, and he came and gave us a big hug, and asked how we were all doing, and congratulated me on my university, and just seemed like normal Andrew that we'd met several times over the years. He just seemed like the positive, happy guy. Mm-hmm. Eric was with him as well. Eric is guitarist, and yeah, it just seemed good. So we walked down to the Jeep we were getting in to go on a safari. And we sat in the Jeep. The Jeep starts to move, and as soon as the Jeep moves, Andrew squashes a bug, right? And starts talking about how he squashed this bug. Then he starts talking about gouging rhinos' eyes out and snapping dogs' necks, and that the world's a gigantic concrete ball, and the animals are going to kill us. And he went completely he had a meltdown. I mean, he had an absolute meltdown in front of us. I'd known the guy at this point. I'd known the guy for 9 years, and he was always the most positive guy I'd ever met in my life. And there's this man sitting there that I know and I'm comfortable with, saying some of the strangest stuff I've ever heard anyone say. Talking about killing animals, gouging their eyes out, how the animals want to eat us. Just proper blabbing on, saying he had more intelligence than Simon Cowell, just loads of weird stuff. And it was like we captured gold. Literally, we'd captured gold. And Andrew wasn't the Andrew that I say we knew. And even Eric was sitting there, who's his bandmate, right, was sitting there looking at him going, what the fuck's going on here?
Yeah.
And we were out for about an hour and a half, and we captured the whole thing on camera. And then we got off, the Jeep stopped, and Andrew got out and turned into normal Andrew and gave us an outro to the interview. And then we're walking back to the campsite, and he says, what you got here could be very dangerous, but I trust you know what to do. And I was like, okay, what does he mean by that? And just walked away. And then I've looked at Chris afterwards, like, what the bloody hell was all that? It was just so surreal. It was like the most surreal thing. So we got back from the festival and we watched back through the footage. And I mean, this was insane. It was insane what we captured. And I think personally, it could have ruined him. I mean, literally, he's talking about killing wildlife and talking quite graphically about it in places, and then talking all this random nonsense like he's completely lost his mind. Then the next day we got a mysterious email from Christine Williams, which is KWK backwards, saying that Andrew was on drugs. Then we got another one saying he wasn't on drugs, and it was just all this weird crap. But I said to Chris, I said, look, I'm a filmmaker. Let's turn this into a film. He's like, yeah. He said, this is better than just a website. We've got to turn it into a film. So we edited it into a film, and then I said, but we're gonna have to. We haven't got him to sign a release or anything, so we're gonna have to pitch it to him. So I pitched it to him, thinking he's going to say no. He's going to say no, and he says, "I love it. It's brilliant. Can you just do me one favor?" And I was like, "Can you just pitch my voice down by 1 octave?" Like, what? And if you ever watched the Who Knows DVD, his voice is pitched down by 1 octave in that as well. So we pitched it down by 1 octave, and he loved it. And we said, we're going to enter into some festivals. He's like, yeah, do it. So we had a premiere in Germany. It then got accepted into Cannes, and we flew out to Cannes,
which is totally nuts.
It's like the most insane experience of my entire life. It was brilliant. I just wish I knew what I was doing when I got there, because everyone wants to meet you and have lunches with you and like sign deals. I could have probably sold this film for quite a bit, but I was so out of my league. I didn't know what was going on. I was just like, oh my God, it's just, I'm a Cannes. I was sitting there talking to my girlfriend on the phone, and I looked next to me, and like Wesley Snipes is sat next to me, like on the phone as well. It was crazy stuff. We went into a hotel, and I brought a round of beers. So I bought like 4 tiny little stubby bottles of beer, and it cost me like 35 euros or something. It was like freaking insane. And then you start talking to all these like film people, and even like these like millionaire film people, because they go every year, they go to the off license, buy a big bottle of booze and just hide it under their chair and fill up their own drinks. But I didn't know that trick, you know.
Right.
But it was an amazing experience. But what also helped and didn't help at the same time was obviously Troma go to Cannes, and now I don't get starstruck about anybody. I mean, I've met so many famous people, but Lloyd Kaufman, who runs Troma, literally is my idol, or was my idol back then. Maybe not so much now, but back then he was my idol. And I was hanging around with people that work for Troma, and every time Lloyd came around, I was like, couldn't talk. I was like that.
Starstruck. Yeah,
I was that starstruck. And then we had a screening we had a few screenings of our film, and one of our screenings I missed my own screening of my own film, so I could go and hear Lloyd Kaufman talk, and so I could talk to him about the film. And eventually I ended up giving the Andrew WK film to Troma, and Troma released it, which it's good for like profile. Obviously Troma don't really pay, they don't really pay you anything for it, but none of these distributors do. That's what I learned through doing, you know, independent film for so many years. You don't get money, but it's been cool having it as a Troma film, you know. And obviously like, them being based in New York and Andrew being based in New York, it was always like, it felt like the right home for it to go to. But I do often wonder that like if we pushed it a bit more, we could have probably taken it to a bigger company. But what we did with what the twist was with the documentary is, we obviously, there's always conspiracies about Andrew being two people.
I was going to ask you about that. Yeah.
So we used the footage from the safari, and then we interviewed fans and some musicians and stuff as well, to see what their opinion was. Was it an imposter or was it Andrew? I mean, I'll tell you now, I mean, I've known the guy since 2002, 2003, and he's always the same guy. It's always 100% being the same guy. But he is an absolute genius when it comes to cooking this shit up and putting it out there. I mean, even just recently, he released his album and deleted all his social media. You know, he's a very quirky guy. Have you seen the diaries that have just come out? There's like, someone's done a 7-hour video on going through like all these journal entries that he's written, where apparently he's planned the whole thing. You know, he's like such a unique, eccentric madman. But I love him, you know. Literally, I owe so much to him. I wouldn't be making films, I wouldn't be at university or anything if it wasn't for that guy. If it wasn't for Party Hard coming out all those years ago and just like getting hooked to it. I mean, I Get Wet is the most positive, like pumping album of all time ever.
That is. I made a remark at a previous office job.
I heard you say it, and I was like,
every Friday at 4:00. They should play I Get Wet. Just play the entire album straight through and get everybody firing up into the weekend. If
the whole world just stopped for like an hour and everyone listens to that one album, world peace would happen. Yeah,
probably.
It's such a positive album. It's brilliant. I mean, like, yeah, I love all his albums. I mean, his later stuff does get a bit weird in places, but I like weird, so you know, I enjoy that. But yeah, I mean, that album is just perfect. It's a perfect album. Really
I was lucky. I never got to see him live during the original run. I got to see him. It had to be 7-8 years ago when he did the I Get Wet in its entirety.
2012.
Yeah. And I was bombed out of my mind, and I don't think I've ever smiled so much in a show in my life. Just smiling and just, it was great. It was really great. He puts on a good show.
He's never a sad face at any of his shows, man. He really does just give it his all, and it's amazing. I mean, that's back when he was still with Cherry Lily as well. So she was up there doing all the Keep Fit shit on stage with him, and all that. You know, really sort of, but genius, like absolute genius, that guy. But I owe so much to him, really. I mean, I did quite a lot of other stuff with the film. I mean, you can look me up on IMDb, and I've got quite a lot of credits. But I mean, yeah, I mean, it was relating it to music. It was really him that sort of, you know, gave me that kick up the arse to get involved with it all. And you know, I'm really thankful for that. So yeah, I mean, I do thank him for that. I mean, I haven't really spoken to him in a few years. He occasionally likes some of my tweets, like normally like really random tweets that I'll tweet about something that, you know, not related to him or anything. He just like it. So at least I know he knows I'm still around, sort of thing.
Yeah, he's still out there.
Yeah,
he's still out there. So let me ask you this, Nick. I mean, I did pull up your IMDb page. It's kind of wild. What's next for you? You still dabbling in film? Like, what's going on?
Well, so basically, the last 8 years I've been in a relationship. I got accepted onto a master's, so I did a master's in filmmaking as well, but could never afford to get the certificate, but I've actually done one. But I've been in a relationship for 8 years, and I had a son 2 years ago. So I had my first child at 40, so that's a bit odd. And my relationship broke up earlier this year, so I'm kind of like throwing myself back into music and film. I mean, I'm even talking about possibly starting a band. Possibly getting back into DJing, and I've got loads of ideas for films. I mean, I've wanted to for years and years and years. I've been saying this since probably about 2008, when I was like really getting the filmmaking bug. I want to make a new metal documentary. I'd love to make a new metal documentary.
You should.
But Chris, my right-hand man, that is really good at getting the interviews and stuff like that, has spent the last 5 years making a vegan music documentary, and has traveled around the world, like interviewing vegan musicians. I mean, he's got everybody. I mean, he's literally been to dinner with Moby. He's been like Earth Crisis, everybody, you know, any vegan musician, he's there. And I've seen how much struggle it's been for him and how much work and money it's cost him to do that. I'm like, I really need someone to like produce. If I was going to do a new metal one, I need someone to produce it, because I'm good at the camera side of it. I'm all right at the interviews, but I do forget things. I need someone who would work along my side to help me do it. You know, I don't think doing it on my own I would get it. But then saying that, like, since I've started this UK one, I think there's nothing stopping me doing a UK documentary.
Oh yeah,
and traveling up and down the UK doing that. And if that takes off, then see if I can go stateside and do, like, you know, a wider one. So that's an idea I've got. But I mean, I've only been single for like 6 months, so kind of like at the moment, just getting back into music,
letting things settle.
Having my son 4 days a week, you know, just like reliving my youth. And I mean, that's why I stumbled upon your podcast. I did a podcast on the really bad 90s TV show Baywatch Nights. It was quite a funny thing, and that's just finished. So we were talking about possibly doing a new metal podcast next, or another crap TV show. So there's a lot of options out there really at the moment. Just enjoying life, really. You know, I'm single, got over the breakup, and just fallen back in love with music. But this new metal journey I'm going on is just terrific. Like,
that's awesome. It's awesome to hear.
Let me ask you, how did you find us, though? I'm always interested in how people find.
So I'm a support worker, so I look after people with learning difficulties. But a lot of the time, like, we do like sleeps and stuff. So I'll do a 24-hour shift. So for 12 hours of my shift, I'm just on my own in a room, either sleeping or just bored. So I listen to a lot of podcasts, and anything that piques my interest at the time, I'll go, ooh. So I was like, I'm back on the new metal thing. Well, there must be a new metal podcast out there. And I found you guys and one other. And the other one I found, the audio was so bad. Like, one person was talking in one ear, one person was talking in the other ear, and it made me feel sick. So I turned it off. And I found you guys and put it on, and straight away, I was just like, these guys, you know, you're my age, you're talking my perspective, and I just got hooked. And then I'd come home I've been listening. I mean, I must have listened to probably about 10 episodes, 15 episodes now.
God bless you.
Like, I listen to you on the bus, and I come home at night, and I literally put you on the telly upstairs. That's awesome. I fall asleep to you.
That is awesome.
But the other night, I went to sleep with you talking about Woodstock, and I woke up with you talking about the obscure bands again. So I'd slept for a couple of episodes on YouTube, and
that's awesome. For the views. So, yeah, right. YouTube doesn't care. No, I mean, even to your point though about doing like even just a documentary on the UK new metal. I mean, you look at some of these. There's been a lot more music documentaries coming out lately that it's been done by the fans, and they're actually pretty damn good. Yeah. I mean, Tim and I were talking about Slave to the Grind, which is the one that just came out about grindcore. That guy spent 2 years putting that together.
I need to see that.
It's really good. The guy who did, I don't know if he's doing a documentary or he's doing a book. The guy who put together Tattoo the Earth has been working on a documentary talking about the struggle and then the fights with Ozfest.
Yeah, I think you mentioned that in one of your other episodes. Actually.
Yeah, I really do think there is an appetite for that. And I mean,
talking about music documentaries, there's one, right, I had it on DVD years ago and I've been trying to track it down again now. It was a documentary about the New York punk and hardcore scene. And I think it was produced by one of the labels, but I can't remember. I think it was called like Relapse or I'm sure it began with an R, and the cover had like someone crowd surfing on it. And they talk
I think
about
I have it.
shows.
I think I have that. Hold on.
I think I have that as well. Yeah.
What was it called? Because it's really bugging me. I desperately want to have a copy of it.
Yeah, I did.
Like
Jay will
at one
find
point,
it.
in a house show or something, and then there's like there's all sorts of like Get Up Kids might be in it as well, and I can't remember, and loads of like punk and hardcore bands. But I'm desperate to find that one.
Yeah, shit. If it's the one I'm thinking of, I'll rip it and send it to you.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I might be able to, if I can remember the name, I might be able to track a copy down, but I just can't remember what it's fucking called.
Yeah, I know Showtime did one as well, but that was Agnostic Front, the Godfather's one. Jay, did you find it?
No, I thought it was the NYHC one. That's notoriously hard to find, but no, there's nobody crowd surfing on that.
This was about, I'm sure it was about 2001, between 2000 and 2001. So it might have been shot like late 90s. And it was
okay.
I'm sure it was predominantly based on one of the New York labels. I think that's I think they were like a bulk of it. But they did go out to like places like Syracuse and stuff and talk to like
was it
and there's some house show footage in there as well.
Well, the good thing is people listening are good on YouTube and they'll tell you.
Yeah.
I know that.
I mean, I've got all the Hellfest DVDs over there, and and now you made me think of like the Eulogy Records one. That was all live shit and stuff.
Yeah, I'll look through my stuff when we're done.
I've got a few still on VHS. Like I've got like the Strife one on VHS, the MXPX one on VHS. I've got the Roadrunner VHS somewhere as well, which is quite cool.
Oh yeah, that's great.
Yeah, it was quite a few that I had back in the day. But yeah, that one I keep remembering it, but I can never remember what the title was. I'm sure it began with an R.
I'm gonna look it up.
If you're listening, if you're one of our fans and you're listening, or you're watching on YouTube and please throw it in the comments. Let us know, because those are the kind of things that get in your head. You're like, shit, what was the name of that? Right. And you bounce around trying to find it. I remembered, you're a filmmaker, so you'll get a kick out of this. I remembered watching some movie as a little kid on HBO in the 80s, and it had terrible visual effects.
Right.
And it was a kid trying to escape, and he fell in with a bunch of bounty hunters. And for years, I tried to find this movie, and I finally found it. And it was some terrible Roger Corman movie. Yeah, and I watched
Star Raiders.
Yes. How do you know it, Nick, off the top of your head? But dude, it is Tim. Watch this movie. It is
so the story behind that film.
What's it called again?
So
Star Raiders.
Star
Raiders.
Okay.
I'll check
have you ever heard of the Roger Corman film Battle Beyond the Stars?
Yes.
Right. So Battle Beyond the Stars was it. Now, obviously, Roger Corman likes to get bang for his buck.
Mm-hmm.
So Battle Beyond the Stars was the most expensive film that he'd ever made at that point. So whilst they were filming it and they still had the sets up, they were making Star Raiders for nothing on the same sets. So it's got all the same ships and it's got the same music. And like some of the shots there are being ripped from Battle Beyond the Stars, and that's like such a tacky film. But now Star Raiders is cool. I like Star Raiders.
I remembered seeing it as a little kid, and the scene I remember, Nick, which is kind of funny because you know the movie. I remembered the kid and the female landing on the planet and the female dying under a bush. That was the only scene I remembered.
One thing about that film is a lot of shots in that film either take place with them hiding behind barrels and stuff or hiding behind bushes, because they wanted to try and mask out the rest of the set so it didn't look like this film that came out at the same time as it. But yeah, it's a good film. If I believe rightly, it's got a James Horner score as well for like a low budget film.
Yes, here it is.
Same score.
Space Raiders. Tim, you got to watch this. It is so bad you're going to laugh hysterically.
I will.
double bill it with Star Crash, the Italian Star Wars. Yeah, double bill it with that goes down quite well.
Let me ask you this: is this new show Ted Lasso as big in the UK as it is here?
It is pretty big. Like I hear people talk about it. I don't
huge here.
I don't watch a lot of shows. I
don't watch it.
I find I'm more into movies. I find with shows, it's like you have to invest so many hours into a show.
Yeah.
Where at least with a movie, you can like watch it in one hit. So I rarely watch shows. I mean, there's a few I watch. Like now you get these like sort of shorter ones on Netflix and Disney Plus. I've got into a few of them. But yeah, very rare I ever follow shows anymore. I just, spend most of the time on the internet, like looking for films or music and games and shit like that.
Oh yeah. I was just curious because I just couldn't believe how
everyone's
big
talking
it got.
about it. Yeah.
I mean, it's a great show. Don't get me wrong. It's just I couldn't believe how big it got, and I'm like, because we're not like a soccer. You know what I mean? Like, of course, over there it's called football.
Yeah.
Over here,
it's
soccer.
not as big here. Yeah, we have just too much competition.
I have noticed every year I go out to the States, it is getting bigger. I mean, especially when I go to Orlando. I mean, it's quite big over there, isn't it? But see, I've never really been into football. I used to go and watch it when I was a kid with my uncle, and I liked it then. But since I stopped watching it live, just never had the interest in it.
Yeah.
Which is I'm not really a sports guy, extreme sports like snowboarding and that, but no, it is. I do hear a lot of people talking about that show, but I've not watched it.
I've only seen clips and memes on the internet. I haven't watched it yet, but I have a bunch of people.
It's a feel good show. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like
so it's not for me.
Just not any murdering and
No, my thing is when the wife's away too, my thing is like you said, Nick, give me like an hour and 20-minute documentary on something at least mildly entertaining, and I'm in. I just watched some video. It was these crazy Sherpa mountain climbers. The guy wanted to do all 14 peaks over 8,000 meters in like 6 months. The last person who did it in 9 years. And this guy did it in 6 months. And it's just, I mean, it was really fascinating. I've never climbed a mountain. I don't plan on ever climbing a mountain, but just to watch these guys trucking up a mountain, like literally trucking. And then they come down and they find out that a hiker is stuck. So they turn around and they go back up the mountain. They grab the guy. And it's like, these guys are absolute lunatics. But yeah, an hour and 20 minutes while I'm watching dinner.
Yeah.
I'm sold.
I mean, but my thing at the moment is since getting really back into music, I've just been watching loads of like interviews with bands and stuff. Like I've been watching the guy from Exodus's show, Zestro's Vault. He does some really good interviews.
Okay.
I've been watching him and the guy from Suicide Silence as well.
Garza,
Chris Garza, right? And have you seen his interview with Dino from Fear Factory?
It's good, right? Yeah.
Dino should have his own, have an evening with Dino. He just tells like random stories for hours.
I think Dino is to the point where he's so sick of the bullshit, he just doesn't care anymore. And he just fucking lets it fly. And
I met Fear Factory a couple of times back in the 90s. And because it was really weird because of, they always used to play in December around my birthday. And Raymond's birthday was around the same time as mine. So I remember like one year, like celebrating my birthday and got told a happy birthday at the same time as Raymond. That was like pretty cool and stuff like that. But I was also with Fear Factory when word got around about Lynn Straight passing away. And that was like a really sad day because of it sort of, I think the gig was on the Wednesday and I think he died on the Sunday or something. And literally word had just got round at that point, because obviously it wasn't like these days where it travels so fast. And I remember seeing like Bert and Bell and like the Fear and Spineshank guys looking really upset, when it all happened. But that was how accessible they all were over here. It was dead easy to meet everybody, and it was great. I mean, venues like the Astoria, it was a fair sized venue. Like it held a good few thousand, but it was a very sort of accessible venue for bands, for fans. And it got legendary because of they had a security guard that worked there, this guy called Neville, and he was this he looked a bit like Derek Green in a way, I suppose, just like 7 foot tall black guy with dreads, but he was like the loveliest guy. But he made the show's fun. So he'd be standing there in front of the stage, but he'd be moshing. He'd be like encouraging people to crowd surf, but do it safely. He would jump on and crowd surf himself. Bands loved the guy, like literally Slayer, Soulfly, Sepultura, and about 3 other bands wanted this guy to literally go with them on tour as their personal security guard. I mean, he was legendary. The magazines would talk about him, like, because he made shows fun, you know, and he was, and still to this day, he's been used as an example of like how you can make gig security fun and safe at the same time. And I mean, when he wasn't, you know, before every show, he'd be outside meeting all of the fans and hanging out with us all and the bands. He was that much of a fan of the music. And we went and saw Spineshank one night. I think it was Spineshank or Static X, one of the two. We said goodbye to him, and he had a motorbike crash and passed away. Oh, and the next week in Kerrang, all these big like rock stars like Max and, you know, all these big people from these big bands all paying tribute to him. And he's gone down as like a legend in the British scene, really. Like, still to this day, you know, you look up the guys called Neville Lynch, I believe his name was. And yeah, I mean, he really took, but it was another part of that new metal era that, you know, there's a real fond memory of it all, because it was such a unique time. And like, you know, at that time, moshing and stage diving, crowd surfing was getting a bit bad press, but this guy made it fun and made it safe. I mean, he was so bloody big, he could have caught anybody anyway, because he was huge, you know, he could multitask. But lovely guy. And I always remember talking to him. That's another fond memory that like I'd forgotten about for a few years. And then getting back into the music just sort of jumped back into my head.
Yeah, jarred it loose. Well, Nick, this has been an awesome pleasure. I know it's getting super late for you, and we are going to have you on again. We are definitely going to deep dive in the workhorse movement. We're looking forward to have you get us into the UK underground new metal scene. We're looking forward to that. So in the interim, Nick, if people want to check out some of your movies, maybe reach out and get in touch, where do they find you?
Right, it's the best place to find me. You can find me on Twitter at NickFMVDev. I was making NFTs for a little bit, so there's a lot of NFT junk on there, but you can reach me on Twitter. I'm always on there. On Facebook, look for the UK new metal scene group.
I just joined it.
I'll share a link for it. Join that group, guys. It's basically everyone's welcome. There is a question which says name a UK new metal band. Don't worry if you don't know one. Just put any answer, you'll still get accepted into the group. And basically you'll be able to learn all about the scene in there and hear stories about what happened back in the day and all these obscure underground bands. I will be coming back on a future episode to talk about. Awesome. Because there's a lot to show off that I think you guys are going to really love. I want the world to hear bands like Vacant Stare and Hybrid UK. So yeah, there's there you can find me. If you're looking for my films, just look me up on IMDb, Nick Box. In the States, I believe you can get on Amazon or from Walmart. There was a box set called 21st Century Grindhouse that has 4 of my films in it. That's on DVD. There's also, if you've got the Trauma Now network, you can get the Andrew WK documentary. Yeah, that's me really. So Facebook or IMDb or Twitter.
Cool.
Yeah, or in the groups.
Fantastic. Yeah. I'm definitely gonna find Brutal Jesus. I think I definitely need to watch that. Like,
I'll see if I have a link.
So on behalf of Tim and myself, Nick, we want to thank you for taking the time on a very late UK evening to join us. On behalf of Nick, Tim, and myself, I want to thank all of you listeners, watchers for tuning in again. Find us on Instagram and Twitter at newbreed_podcast, newbreedpodcast@gmail.com. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, disagreements with something that we've said. Some of our comment section on YouTube has gotten a little bit spicy lately. So if you take umbrage with some of our hot takes, please reach out and let us know. And you can also find us bouncing around on the r/new metal subreddit. I definitely threw some irons in the fire this week, so it was a pretty good conversation. So once again, we want to thank everybody for tuning in. This is a really labor level. We really enjoy it. And until next time, this is New Breed Show saying cheers.
Later.
See you there.